Hello, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Phil Aston, and we're going to be talking about building communities in a very noisy world. Before I'm going to get Phil to introduce himself and say I'm going to read some of the stats. So he's built a community. So there's a number of things with the community. There's a website which gets 198,000 visits per month, including a high level engagement and interest in that content. He's got a YouTube channel which posts 725 videos with a total of more than 1.8 million views, 140,000 hours watched, supported by a growing community of over 11,000 subscribers. The target audience consists of people aged between the age of 30 and 60. Find your niche or niche, depending if you're in the States. He has a particular type of person that he's building that particular community for. Phil, welcome. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me in two places. For my music, which music channel and music enterprise, which Tim's just mentioned, that is at nowspinning.co.uk. It's called Now Spinning Magazine, and it's also on YouTube, just literally Now Spinning Magazine. And there's a LinkedIn page also called Now Spinning Magazine, and basically Now Spinning Magazine is on Instagram, TikTok, and everywhere else.
Reddit.
And it's just arrived at Reddit. Just set up a little outpost there. And my digital agency is geniusloci.co.uk. And that has pivoted as well more towards supporting the music industry, as Now Spinning Magazine has taken off primarily in the last 12 months.
Because I remember you actually came on here back during COVID, and you'd been in a situation where, because you live in Cornwall, which for those that don't know it's a place in the UK which is pretty much based on tourism.
Yes.
All of your clients were hotels or whatever, and overnight, because of COVID, everything just collapsed.
That's correct. Yeah, basically, almost all of our revenue just stopped. My wife runs a string quartet agency for weddings, and all of the weddings stopped. Everything stopped.
And in a way, you always had this, because you've always been involved in the music industry.
Yeah.
Since you were you're an avid guitar player.
Yeah.
You've played in bands, but that always kind of got pushed to the back. But because of COVID, it came to the front, didn't it?
It did come to the front, and it was a case of looking around and thinking, well, what do I know about that might be interesting to other people? Is there another way of kind of pivoting in a different direction? And I've always been interested in music, but it was also a case of going through life and thinking that all the things I used to do when I was younger, in my 20s, was hang around record shops with my friends. We'd go to the pub, talk about what we recently bought. And as you go through life and mortgages and children and all the rest of it happens and you move across the world, I started to realize that apart from one friend who wasn't on social media and I only saw him about once a year, I didn't have anyone to talk to about saying, is anyone else buying a record or a CD? And all I saw in the news was that no one else did that. So I just felt like I wanted to find someone else to talk to. But obviously I was on social media and I knew there were lots of music groups and people talking about stuff. But whenever I looked over the fence at those, they seemed to be lots of, arguments and fighting, and they didn't seem a very safe or friendly place to be.
Yeah.
And I remember watching a Gary Vee video where he said, you just need one more than zero to be an influencer or to know you're on the right track. And I just thought, well, who do I want to find? I want to have just somewhere to chat to people like myself. And that was the clue, like myself. So I just set out to find someone like myself. And I thought if I found one or two, then that's it. And I remember I set up, this was in the days of Google Plus. That's where it started.
I was going to say it was Google Plus, wasn't it?
It was Google Plus, yeah. When I set up something called What's in My Music Collection, which was a bit of a mouthful and was never going to be a website. And then when Google Plus started to falter, we moved to Facebook, and one of the members said, why don't you just rename it Now Spinning? And that's where it came from. And I remember being so chuffed when we crossed the 15 members mark. because I thought 15, wow, 15 people, that's a lot of people in a pub if
Mm,
we all met up.
mm.
Um, but it, but that's how it started. But it was just literally just being myself. And then,
Well, you found your niche though, didn't you?
yeah, I found, but I didn't think of it like that. And I started to think, because is there I didn't think of monetizing it at this point at all. I just thought, what else can I do? Because my background was building websites and internet marketing, digital marketing, and social media. I thought, well, I'm used to websites, so we need a website. So I set up a website, nowspinning.co.uk, and built it and started putting content in it, and then sharing that across Twitter and Instagram and various different places, and then set up the Facebook group and then the Facebook page. Sorry, I did it the other way around, and just started to think about that. But it was about, I'm not a natural writer. I find writing slow and I find it difficult. Whether I'm kind of very slightly dyslexic, I don't know, but I've always found it tricky. So I thought video. I'm quite shy. I'm not. I'm not a natural public speaker, but I thought I probably could do this. So I just put a camera up and started to do a few videos, unboxing things, and starting a YouTube channel. And that was really the turning point, was YouTube.
Mm.
But as you say, it was a crowded place, and also I'm just like anyone else watching this. Is that I want to see some feedback. I want to know that what I'm doing is actually going to work and is actually worthwhile. It's like anything else. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend some money on Facebook advertising. I'm going to do this. I need proof that it's going to work. So I would do a video, launch it onto YouTube, and sit back to see if it was going to go viral or people were going to watch it. And nobody did.
Yep.
And so I'd do another one and nobody watched it. And then I thought, well, maybe I'm picking the wrong things. I'll pick a really big band, a really big album, and I'll spend ages on it. And then I'll sit back and I won't do another one until I've got proof that this is going to work. So I did a huge box set or a big band name. Nobody watched it. So then there would be gaps of 2 or 4 weeks before I did another one. And then I think, well, this is pointless. And it was actually, I bought a book about YouTube, how to become uber famous on YouTube, and the book almost put me off. I remember sending I think it was a message to Mark Schaefer saying, I've got this book and it's actually making me really stressed. And he said, take no notice of competitors, just concentrate on your
Get in
creativity.
your swim lane, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it. So I just thought, well, I'm going to stop looking over the fence. It looks like there are people out there with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It's just putting me off. I'm looking at what they do, their camera techniques. I thought I'm gonna stop looking and just imagine that the person I'm talking to is the person I originally wanted to find, a bit like me, sitting the opposite side of the table. And I started again, and I just did them when I wanted to, and didn't worry about how long they were, and I just did them. And when I looked at my stats a few weeks later, people were watching them. And in fact, people were watching the ones I'd done ages ago. And it started to move and it started to grow quite quickly.
So just to pick up, there's a couple of comments. So Adam Gray says, that's great. 15 members who share your passion is brilliant. Yeah. And Chris Stone, the podcaster, says, excellent mindset. Imagine finding 15 people in the pub. It's incredible to connect to people from people with people all over the world. Yeah, it's very much so, Chris. Thank you.
Because I think the other thing that was happening, me thinking I'm down in the rural part of Cornwall in the UK, where it's quite an isolated place. It's not a big metropolis by any stretch of the imagination. It's cut off. Is that there were people in Australia, Brazil, New York, Canada, Africa, all roughly the same, all thinking that there was no one else that bought records or were interested in talking about music. So they all started to connect and find each other. They were connecting on YouTube, so the community was growing there. Then the community was growing in the Facebook group from people all around the world, and that's where it really started to kind of get momentum, really. And
And are you finding that YouTube and Facebook kind of work together? Because some people will say you got to focus on just one or the other.
they're very different. And the Facebook group, in a way, it's a walled garden. I don't just mean that Facebook is a walled garden itself. I mean the group within itself it's a private group. You have to answer certain questions to get in,
Mm.
and then there are certain
It's
rules.
very
And
select, yeah.
yet it's select. And it's very easy just to have let loads of people in. I was never at any point thinking thousands and thousands of members, please. I was just thinking I'm going to grow this organically with the right people. So the people who've been there the longest, it's like people moving into a new, they moved into the neighborhood. People reach out and welcome them, offer them a cup of tea, and they feel part of it. And that's how that grew. Now, YouTube is the Wild West because there's no walls around it. It's a public arena. So I wanted to have the same approach. I was kind, and the way I commented, everything I do is based on, as you know, Tim. Does it make people smile? Will it will it spread positivity in any way? And I approach the same way with comments on YouTube. So anybody who was disrespectful, I didn't just feel it against me. I felt it against someone else in that thread. So that's how I approached it. So I've managed to create a YouTube community that's public, that has the same ethos as the Facebook one. But obviously, the YouTube one is thousands of people. There's thousands of people who don't even subscribe that are watching. So it's a very busy place. Um, so that was very different. But the whole point of was growing it was, I'm not thinking of monetizing even at this stage. It was just thinking of growing it in a way that it still remained joyful and effortless.
And for you, that's because you have a passion in music. It's important that you retain that passion.
Yes, because YouTube is a unique social platform in the way that it kind of makes you aware of the algorithm, whereas in Facebook and maybe LinkedIn and other places, it's a mysterious thing in the ether where you're trying to work out what's going on, and if I do this, what will happen. YouTube is very open. If you release a video that does really well, it will tell you. Its AI system will say, "Well done. The video you've just done is attracting far more viewers than you normally have. You should do more of these." And equally, it will say, not many people are watching this video compared to what you normally do. We advise you don't do these. So you're kind of steered in thinking, well, I bet many people think, well, I better not do that kind of video anymore. But it's important to me that what I do, and to retain my passion for what I'm talking about, if I'm suddenly thinking, oh, I just need to do Rolling Stones ranking videos because they get the most views, then I'm not me anymore. I'm not the person who sat down, who set this up in the first place. I'm now being told what to do by something. And that will mean long term, I am getting the wrong people into my community. If I can explain that a bit better, for what I want to do, as you say, finding your niche out there are blokes of a certain age. I am one of them, who like rock music. I am one of them, and they all basically stick to that kind of format. I really wanted this to be like the old music papers from the 70s and 80s, where I could cover any genre, any style of music, and anything, and feel free to talk about it. The same way the Facebook community, people can mention anything.
Yep.
And so when I started YouTube, if I suddenly talked about Deacon Blue and Led Zeppelin, I'd have the Led Zeppelin fans saying, that was a bit of a misstep there, Phil, covering a pop group. You're all about classic rock. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm about anything. I want to put out as much content as possible so that the people that love soul music, there's their videos for them. The people that like rock music, there's the videos for them. For jazz, likewise. And equally, there'll be some people who are my audience who will like all of those genres, because that's the people I'm really after, because those are the people who are going to be attracted to what I do, because there is no one else that really covers all the genres, who feel almost apologetic if they talk about something that doesn't fit in with their kind of niche, if you like.
Yeah.
So if I followed what YouTube was telling me to do Rolling Stones, Phil, it's really popular, do physical graffiti again. Long term, the people who are coming in would not be the people for my long term success. A good example is I did a video that went viral about a year ago, and it received 170,000 views in about 3 days, and the subscriber number went through the roof. And I could have easily tried to mimic that, but that wouldn't have been, if I'd done that, where I am now and the people I talk to and the community I've built up, those wouldn't have been the right people. I think you have to stay true to what you wanted to do in the first place.
So what you're saying is don't chase the algorithm.
No, don't chase it, because if you chase the algorithm, it will influence what you create. And I know a lot of people say, but that's a good thing, isn't it? Because if you're there are YouTube channels, there are books on this telling you what you should concentrate on, what you should create. I've felt with this because being outside of my digital marketing expertise, as it was, where I did chase algorithms and I read on papers on what I should do, how I should promote my clients. With this, I decided to go back to ground zero and not be influenced by anything like that and think, what do I want to do? I've got nothing to lose. What do I want this to be? If I chase the algorithms, it means that when I suddenly get inspired by something I've read in the news, by something I've heard on the radio or seen on the TV, and I think, I'm going to do a video on that, I'm going to have another voice that says, that isn't going to do very well, Phil, or maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should do another one like the one you did last Tuesday. I don't want that. I want to just be inspired and sit down in front of the camera and do it.
Because you told me that you did a video of somebody that had basically passed away, a rock star, pop star, and their son or something
Yeah,
phoned up and said, "Watch the video. It was amazing. Thank you so much for that." I mean, that must have been that's worth it, isn't it?
it is worth it. And I think that what I've realized, and I've just before I did this, somebody who I knew from school said that I lost a school friend many years ago, and a friend of the older brother who's retired to Hawaii
Yep.
found watched the video the other day where I mentioned um, um, my friend from school, and he reached out and said, "You don't know me, but I know who you spoke about. I live in Hawaii now," and I've realized that you don't everything, even those videos that I talked about at the start of this talk where I said nobody watched them, people are watching them now. And I realize there's almost like responsibility in thinking that if I'm talking about a rock star or a musician who's passed away, at some point either that person's wife or husband or son or daughter will watch this. It will just appear in front of them a year from now or something, or even the next day. So I try and think that the same way as I'm talking to a version of me the other side of the table, I'm thinking about how they feel. So it's very important to me that when I do the videos, they're not about me. And they're I'm trying to think of the same way as when I do anything on social media, before I comment, is this going to help? Is it going to cause any harm? These are important aspects to everything that I do.
And you've also done some stuff recently on mental health, haven't you? Which
Yeah,
you've actually found your competitors copying,
yeah, which is great,
and
because
that's flattering, though, isn't it?
it is, and I have, I mean, I every so often I might look over the fence to see what, my kind of nearest competitors might be doing, and it's interesting how some of the wordage they're using. I use my, music is the healer and the doctrine in my videos, and I've noticed that appearing in some other places, but which is fine, because it is. But I wanted to do musical and mental health. I'd also studied yoga a few years ago, and I was a
Yeah,
teacher.
you're a big yoga.
Yeah, and also I'd had like anxiety issues myself. I'd lost my mom recently, just before COVID, and I wanted to, and I know how music had helped me. And I thought, right, I'm doing videos on Black Sabbath and latest releases and unboxing. How do I suddenly do a video on music and mental health? It'll be like, it will just sit there like a sore thumb. And it did, but it took off, and then I had lots of people saying they'd come to the channel because that was so different, and it had given them a chance to open up. And I've introduced, and I think even in the Facebook group, which is a music group, but people can talk very openly about if they're going through an illness at the moment, or they're waiting for hospital tests, or people just talk. And I think that kind of ethos, or the feeling of being safe. People have put long essays on YouTube, which is, as I say, is public, talking about their mental health struggles. And instead of being attacked by trolls, people have supported them and said, yeah, that's the same as for me. I'd mentioned about when I started work as an apprentice electrician, I got bullied at work in my first year as being an apprentice, and I thought, should I mention that? And I thought, well, I want to mention how I used to come home on the bus and listen to Black Sabbath, through the earphones, and how it got me away from the factories. And so many people said, I relate to that so well, and they're from Australia, New York, Los Angeles. It's been, that is very, very rewarding.
So, what are your three rock records of all time then, Phil?
Well, I don't think we can ever escape our formative years, can we? As much as we want to. So, and if the house is on fire and I'm going to run out the house with 3 albums under my arm, and thanks for allowing me to have 3, then it would be the first.
Well, I do know that you have multiple copies of certain albums. So.
Yeah, exactly. So,
how many copies of Machine Head, Deep Purple Machine have you got?
It's in double figures, and it's
No,
completely.
because his wife might be watching.
Exactly. But it's completely unnecessary unless you're me. Then it's incredibly important. But my favourite album would be the first Montrose album from 1973. I have several versions of that as well, but not as many as Machine Head by Deep Purple. My next one Machine Head isn't in my top 3, by the way.
Okay.
The next one is Burn by Deep Purple,
Yeah.
and the third one is actually a compilation, which is the Free Story.
Right.
Those are 3 albums that I still
So
play.
you wouldn't even rush in and save Machine Head or Made in Japan or anything like that.
Well, it depends if it depends if the Fire Brigade get here a bit earlier. Maybe I can get a few copies out. I don't know. But yeah, those would be my 3 favourites.
Phil, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about your community. Where can people find you?
You can find nowspinning.co.uk is the website. YouTube Now Spinning magazine is where you'll find it. It's easy, just put that in and you'll find us really easily. The same as Instagram is Now Spinning UK, and also Twitter. For me personally, for the digital marketing side, in Twitter it's just Phil Aston, and on LinkedIn it's Phil Aston, and also geniusloci.co.uk.
Thank you so much for coming on, Phil, and talking about your community.
That's okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
And we got a final comment from Adam saying, wonderful stuff, guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.